Hey everybody, welcome back to the Salesforce for Everyone YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to put together a statement of work. And we're going to do this in sort of a unique way by actually working with one of my freelance program members who is currently working through landing a new client, and they're getting a statement of work in place. Now, we're going to deep dive into this. This is going to be a pretty long video where we're actually going to go fully through a real world statement of work for a real world client. But before we do that, I want to remind you that every ad that you see on this YouTube channel, all of the revenue that this channel gets goes directly back to the viewers. Right now, we are on track to do about $160 to $170 for the month of December. The month of December is almost over, but we're going to be giving away to one viewer about $170. So I'm really excited about that. Last month, it was about $120. This month, it's $170. So next month, if we stay on track, we should start being able to give away $200, $300 to members very consistently month over month. So just remember, this is a monthly giveaway, and the way that you can get your name in the hat is to hop on LinkedIn, hop on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and post using hashtag Salesforce for Everyone. The other thing you can do is share the Salesforce 5-day challenge. So all you have to do is hop on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or anything else and just share www.talentstacker.com/Salesforce, and that will take people to the completely 100% free Salesforce 5-day challenge, which has landed people jobs and kickstarted their Salesforce careers totally for free. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already and share it with others. That way, all you have to do is hop on LinkedIn, share that URL. It's in the video description below, and share that and say hashtag Salesforce for Everyone, and that will get your name in the hat. The other way is to simply comment and like this video. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that. Like the video, comment on the video. Those will all get your name in the hat for the giveaway this month, which is coming up here in just a few days. All right, so all of that behind us. Now let's get back to what we're really going to talk about today. So we're going to be going through one of the major components of my freelancing course, and we're going to do it all for free right here for you. So there are a lot of components to the freelance program that I offer. There are 4 or 5 different ways to help you find clients if you're just getting started. There are major components as far as how to get non-disclosure agreements in place from a legal standpoint, how to get payment terms in place to make sure that you get paid, how to get statements of work, which we're going to talk about today, which are how we put the deliverables in place to make sure our clients know what we're going to be giving them before they ever sign up to work with us. This is once we talk to them, we figured out sort of what they're looking to do, and then we put a statement of work in place, or a proposal, a lot of people call it, to tell the client what we're going to deliver, how much it's going to cost, and get it in front of them. Now, outside of that, we do move forward from the statement of work. The next step is moving into actually doing business requirement gathering, which is a business analyst really job role. But as a freelancer, you do every job role. So we are gathering requirements from the client. We talk to you exactly how to do that. That won't be in this video, but we may share that in the future. But what the freelance program goes through is gathering those requirements, documenting the requirements, solutioning for the requirements, how to put together end user and administrator training, and then how to get your clients on long-term with managed services agreements. So in the freelance course, we go through all of this. If you want to check out more information, look in the description below. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to give you an overview of why is Brad meeting with this guy? He's one of our members. He's one of the freelance program members, and he's looking at landing a new client, and they haven't given him very many requirements. So I'm sort of giving you a prep for what this is all about. So they haven't given him great requirements at all. And that's pretty typical with small companies, that they don't give you the best requirements. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to walk through this with one of our members. And this is an actual SOW for a real company. We're going to walk through this together, and I'm going to give him some advice, and we're going to talk, and we're going to work through getting an actual finalized statement of work over the next hour and a half on this call. So I know it's a long haul, but for those of you who are seriously interested in understanding the nuts and bolts of doing freelance consulting, this is a really great deep dive into seeing an actual member get their statement of work in place for a client who's not giving the best requirements. So let's dive in.
I went through and I took, your template and I, chopped it up and made it mine.
Yep.
But what I found myself, and we can touch on this as we go. What I found myself doing is trying to itemize things, at least with the services, trying to itemize things as granular as I could, so that if he were to say, like, listen, we don't need all this work done now, we'll do some of this work later, that he can pick out those things, but what's left is the real meat and potatoes of the project, stuff that would make me the most money and really have the most hours involved.
Yep.
So with that, I really tried making this area where, it says key goals of the project. I really tried making those goals. And that's I'd like feedback on everything, but that's one of the areas where I could tell myself that maybe I'm drifting a little away from goals and talking more about high level parts of a project. But so I started off with saying, first cleanup and reorganization. I'm thinking like I'm going to go into his Lightning app and I'm just going to remove stuff and move stuff around. But first, I need to also, I'm thinking that I'm also going to rearrange page layouts. And in order to do that, I probably would run a series of reports, like very, very out of the box reports, to get an idea of what data elements they're using and what data elements they're not using. So, I said through data analysis, determine unused and key data points to allow accurate cleanup of objects and fields and creation of intelligent reporting dashboards. Removal of unneeded objects and fields from user interface, intuitive reorganization and structuring of remaining components. Does that make sense to you?
So I don't have a relationship with these people, and it sounds like maybe you don't a whole lot either. Here's what when you read that off. So what I'm hearing is that lingo sounds very much like resume or LinkedIn lingo. And the reason I say that is because there's a difference between professional, like I'm about to pay you money lingo, and high level, I'm just trying to get to know sort of the types of things you're good at lingo, if that makes sense. Like on a LinkedIn profile, it's very generic. It's very much like, I worked on projects and I cleaned up fields and I audited the back end of systems and I did these things. And I don't need to tell you too much because I can't write you a page of detail, but these are the kind of things I'm comfortable with. And when you come into a statement of work, it's very different from that. This isn't bad, but what I would do is it sounds very almost like it's on a different level of like, hey, I'm going to do these very generic things. And the reason that it's coming over that way is because you don't have solid requirements. So it's coming off as like, I'm just going to do some good stuff to make everything a little better. Like, is that cool? And you're using good lingo. Like, it's all very Salesforce efficiency, productivity. Like, we're going to streamline this and optimize that. And like, that's all cool, but we've got to get to a point where we're actually giving value. So what I'm looking for here, let's scroll down a little bit. So what I want to see is like the overview. So you've got the background. We're going to work on these particular topics. We're going to go through these things. All right, these are good. And then we come down to the actual like breadth of the work. Okay, so we're going to do $100 an hour. We have X number. Everything's the same price, right? The rate.
Yeah, I mean, do you normally charge different rates?
No, different? I just wanted to make sure that it's as simple as hours times dollars equals total. Doesn't matter. So if I say, man, 20 hours sounds like a lot, let me chop that and add another 5 to data analysis, that it's all the same. Like everything's always the same. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Yep. That makes it clean. No, I typically charge the same. I've seen some larger firms charge like a rate for development versus a rate for whatever, but you need like a 200-hour project to start worrying about, blended rates or whatever else. Let's see. So this is what I think there might be a little too much detail at the top, just going off cuff right now. I think this is where, at the top being the background that you gave, where it was like, we're going to do some of this, we're going to do some of that. Like, to me, it's
like up here.
Yeah, it's probably a little too in depth. I might even stick with like the overview of what we're going to do. Like, we're going to take your Sales Cloud, Salesforce Sales Cloud, and we are going to do basically, and our key goals are to audit the existing Salesforce Sales Cloud structure, and we're going to remove inefficiencies from that structure to make sure that we're starting with a very clean, just sort of baseline for your Salesforce implementation. Like, we know that you implemented it. We know you've used it to a very basic level. So let's take whatever you're doing today and let's just sort of pull it back down to the baseline. Like, I don't want to interrupt anything you're working on right now, but if you have custom fields you're not using, whatever else, but we don't have to put all that. That's just important for you to know. Like, if I'm coming into this project, my entire goal is to start the project by doing a quick audit. And audit's it sounds like it could be a lot of things, but really let's go look at the standard and custom objects that they're using. Let's go see if there's like a ton of custom fields on it. And if there are, let's worry about it and try to figure out why there's so many custom fields and if anybody's using them. And if there's like 5 or 10 custom fields, then forget about it, because the what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, the value of eliminating a field or two is not that big of a deal from like a reporting noise or how many fields are on the layout perspective. It'd be a huge deal if I saw that they had 40 custom fields and it's like, what are you doing with all these? But if they have 5 or 10, it's like, all right, we can worry about this later. Not a big deal to get us back to a baseline. So what I want to do is I want to take the Salesforce org and pull it back down to the basics. Like, if you have like 5 different page layouts, but only one of them's assigned to somebody, I want to delete them, because I don't want to have to make a choice every time I add a new field. Which layouts am I going to add it to? Like, bump all that. Let's get this thing down to a very basic level. So get rid of worthless validation rules, get rid of any workflow rules that aren't really working, process builders that aren't built properly, things like, fields that are obviously like ABC test field. Like, let's just throw a lot of that stuff out and get to a very clean starting point. So that would be my first thing. And I would probably call that at the top, I would probably call that like number 1, Salesforce Sales Cloud backend audit, something like that. And I would just leave it really simple and say something like, we're going to review the customizations that have been made to the platform up to this point and determine.
They're actually in an opposite position where they haven't made any customizations.
Perfect. So that's all you're doing is basically confirming that. Like, that's perfect. If they haven't done anything, then you're just checking the box and you're saying, as a consultant coming into work in your Salesforce org, I am comfortable with what is already here and moving forward into customizations. Because the worst thing you want to do is take like a small bowl of spaghetti and make it into a huge bowl of spaghetti, just like crisscrossing and everything's broken. So we may as well like take the small bowl of spaghetti and like straighten it all out and then get started building. So that's all we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, I would keep that super simple, number 1. Now there is some other stuff down here like Hubspot sync. Like, that's very specific to a goal of the project. And then, so I would definitely have HubSpot sync as its own line. And then, but really for the second item, I would be looking at like Salesforce optimization and enhancements to like streamline business processes. It's very basic up here. And then we're going to, I'll let you type that out. And then we'll,
okay.
So all we want them to do is basically up here, go 1, 2, 3 and read very quick sentences and go, that makes sense. Like, that's what I was trying to accomplish with this project. There's no detail here, so I better scroll down and see more detail. But for the background up here, what are our key goals? 1, 2, 3. Yep, that makes sense as our major key goals for this interaction with Conrad. That's what we do want him to accomplish at a baseline. All right, now let's go see what he's put into the details of what he sees as his deliverables. Because when you scroll down,
so I don't really need to put more than like what's here. Like I don't need to put a sentence describing more of what it means to optimize and enhance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't really think so. Not too much. Not unless they've given you like we want 70% of our users logging in on a weekly basis. Like if they've given you like, and that would be under your user adoption topic or something. But really, I mean, that all goes down into the deliverable of it. Like create a product catalog. That's, to me, that's part of enhancing Salesforce to meet their business processes. User security review, it's another example of something you simply do to enhance the processes. So I think all of it's good. I just think it could probably be copied and pasted down into the actual deliverables of the project. And that's what really section 2 is down there, is when we're scoping out what are we delivering to you. Like this is all generic, just sort of read it, make sure we're on the same page for what the project goals are. Now, section 2, what are you going to deliver to me and how long is it going to take? So this is everything that, like, the top part is really just like, you're not really held accountable to the top part. No one's going to come back to you and say, hey, you didn't enhance Salesforce. Like, that's debatable. Clearly I did. That they're not holding you accountable to the key project goals. What they're holding you accountable to is, did you really spend 10 hours on initial discovery and design documentation? Now that's where you can be held accountable. And it's where you want to hold them accountable too. Right. This goes both ways. Like, guys, I've already spent 12 hours on initial discovery and design documentation. I ate a couple of the hours for you because we went over and I know it was out of your control, but we can't go to 15 or 20 on a 10-hour line item. So we either have to add more hours or we have to take hours from a different line item in order to facilitate this process, right? Now, it is your job as the consultant to come in and say, hey, look, we got to understand how to get this initial discovery and design completed in 10 hours. Like, you can't come in just sort of, hey, we need some requirements that I can write a design for. And it's like, you got to facilitate that a little bit. So you've got to come in with a plan of action that says, how am I going to get these people to give me the requirements that I want? Now, what I would do is, based on what you've done up to this point, is I would be looking for quick wins that any company in the whole world is going to want in their Salesforce org. And the way that we do that is, all we have to do is take a step back. And when a client is not giving you proper requirements, it's time to make requirements for them and let them confirm if those are things that they want to do. Now, if they come back and say, what are these? Like, nobody asked for this. Like, this doesn't even sound useful to us. Cool. Then what does sound useful to you? Why doesn't this sound useful? It gives you a starting point. Right. And if they come back and they go, oh man, I didn't even think of that. Like, that sounds really useful. Then you're already winning as a consultant, because they're going like, whoa, this guy, he has some ideas that I didn't really think about, but that makes perfect sense for any business. So what I think of is, what I would start doing is, in the program or in the course, you can find the design document that's like the RDO, requirements and design overview. And I would start putting my own requirements into that. I wouldn't necessarily write a design for it yet or like try to solve for it, but I would start doing my own. So this company sounds like we use Salesforce. Our leads come in, we convert them, we do this. We would like to know how the companies are structured that we're working with, to know where the contacts sit in the hierarchy of that company. And we want some nice reports and dashboards around our data. Like, okay, cool. Well, thanks for the info. Yeah. That wasn't exactly what I needed, but let me help guide you now. So what I would be coming into this with is sort of a pre-built requirements and design. And it's going to have the requirements left-hand side filled out on the different topics, like leads, for instance. Typically, finding valuable leads is the hardest part of running any successful company, period. That's just about true for every company in the world. It's like, I want to sell shoes. I already made really good shoes. I've got a great product, and I know they're amazing. And now it's my job to get people to buy these and realize how amazing they are. But if I can't find people to buy them, if I can't get in front of my audience, that's my problem. That's not the consumer's problem. That's my fault for not getting in front of them and telling them about this amazing product that I have. And that is probably the hardest part of any company, is consistently getting in front of high quality prospects or leads or whatever you want to call them. So coming into Salesforce, these are their leads. Well, it's like, well, man, how do we start biting off this beast? Like, all I know is what do these guys sell?
Marketing, compliance, governance software.
Okay. So they're selling compliance software to other companies who either they're just marketing a perfectly fine product, maybe they're marketing questionable products, maybe they're doing things like they have call centers set up where they're calling people on like robo dialers, where it's just like boom, 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 and they need to make sure that that's legal or they're compliant. They need to make sure that if they're sending somebody 10 emails a day and they're from Canada, that's a little bit different. We've got Castle compliance. Maybe they're from the UK. We've got GDPR compliance. Maybe they're in healthcare and we have to deal with other types of like healthcare compliance. Like there's exactly so many different rules around marketing and it's changing consistently. That's a great product. Now, if you're selling multi-marketing, some of these that would be called like a quote unquote scheme. I don't know if I agree with that or not. It depends on the product. You are probably going to be in trouble with compliance pretty quickly, right? Because you're going to be blasting off emails or maybe emailing people that haven't opted into emailing, or maybe they're in Canada and you're blasting them before they ever opt in, whatever it is. And so they need to find more companies that are doing marketing, but maybe they're not big enough to have a legal department to handle all of the compliance for them, but they're big enough that they're doing business, they're doing a lot of business, they need to reach a lot of people, and they need to make sure that they're compliant. So they need to figure out a way to get in front of more of those people. And they're going to have different ways. They might use like a LinkedIn professional edition to try to get in front of more businesses. They might use, like Google marketing or like Facebook marketing, or there's no telling what they're using. A lot of these people are out there marketing different things, and they've got to figure out how to get in front of their audience. Now, they're probably already doing some things successfully. They're probably already getting in front of their targets successfully. So what we want to do is build reporting that proves to them not just their gut thought is that this particular lead source works really well and this other one doesn't work very well. We need to prove to them with data what works well and doesn't work well. So what I would do is, in a super long-winded way of saying that, is I'll tell you what I think about the lead side of things, but I would also say try to take a step back and think about them as a business. Like, you're the consultant. You're the one who's worked with other businesses in the past that have done different things. Now it's your job to take those and mold other processes that you've built and make them applicable to this company. So how do you do that? And think of it all the way through. What do typical companies do to get leads? How do they report on that in Salesforce? How do they track that? What fields are they using to track where their leads are coming from? What are they doing to determine if those leads are converting into purchases? What other meaningful information can we take from this? So on the lead side, it's like, to me, the obvious things are, where are my leads coming from? Like quantity, how many new leads am I getting into my system and where are they coming from? If I'm not tracking where they're coming from with like an ad source or a lead source, I'm already in big trouble. We got to make sure that's in place and it's being utilized. If it's not being utilized, like if we're not getting lead source on every single lead, big trouble. Like, we have no data to report on. All right, now that we have the lead source on every lead, how many of those leads are converting as truly qualified? And now the question is, what is our qualification criteria to get a lead to go from lead to contact? Are we just converting everybody that answers the phone? Or do we actually care that they have a specific title or they're a decision maker with the company, or what is it that makes them qualified, right? So it's, yeah, stuff like that. So it's got to make sure they have a lead source, got to make sure that we have a defined qualification criteria. And then we need to report on simple things like lead conversion percentages by source. That's a simple one. It's like, how many leads from each source are converting? Is it 10% of these leads convert, 50% of these leads convert? And you can see how they tie together. Like if you don't have good qualification criteria, then your lead conversion report is garbage because you don't know who's getting qualified and what qualified means. So to me, in my world, I use converted and qualified. Those are interchangeable words. You don't convert a lead until it's qualified. How do you qualify a lead? You don't know how? Then we have no reporting. So I have to know my lead sources. Then I can get really cool info. Like if I spent $1,000 on a Facebook ad and I spent $1,000 on a LinkedIn ad, how many leads came in from each one of those? Now that's great. So let's say we got 10 leads from Facebook and 20 leads from LinkedIn. That's not the end of the story. That's good. But what we really care about is how many of those converted. And then after that, what we really care about is how many of those purchased and what was the dollar amount of those purchases. And by the time we get through that lead pipeline, we will know dollar amount of purchases from this particular LinkedIn ad divided by, the amount that it cost us. And now we know what our profit margin is for this particular ad, right? And that's what's meaningful to companies. And when they can look at a lead source and they can go, some like rookie marketers might say, I did $1,000 on Facebook and I got 2,000 new leads. That's incredible. Because I did $1,000 on LinkedIn and I only got 100 new leads. Like we're never doing LinkedIn again. But then it turns out 50% of the people from LinkedIn bought and 1% of the people from Facebook bought. And LinkedIn is drastically more beneficial than these garbage, low quality leads you got off of Facebook, So once you can put reports in front of them that tell them a story about the way they're sourcing their leads, you start to be able to help them make business decisions. And it takes a little bit of work for you to implement that. But when you just go to show it to them and you go, hey guys, I'd like to show you this new homepage dashboard. And the top 3 elements here are how many new leads by source last 30 days. So check it out. First component right here shows you how many new leads you got total, and it breaks it down by source over the last 30 days. So I can tell you exactly where your leads are coming from. Second component right here in the middle of the homepage dashboard, what percentage of those leads converted by source. Now we know that. Oh, and right over here on the right side, we have total dollar amount of purchases by source. Boy, isn't that amazing? I can tell you how many came in, how many converted, how many dollars worth of purchases were made by source. Now, as a manager or a director or a decision maker at a company, you can look at these 3 reports right here together on the top of this dashboard, and you can make a business decision on where to spend more money on your ads. You can already make an informed business decision by clicking the refresh button, looking at the data, and deciding where to spend more money. That easy. And I guarantee you, they've never been able to make an informed business decision like that ever without going through a ton of just data and writing it all down and trying to put it into an Excel sheet and figure out what to do. I promise you that if you can put that in front of them and tell them, this is why lead sources are important. This is why.
What was that third report?
Yeah, it's just it's just on the third report. That's going to be the total dollar amount of purchases by lead source.
Got it.
So you've got total number of leads, total number that converted, and total amount purchased.
And that purchase one, I guess you'd have to join in some opportunity data.
Yep. Well, that's where you get to you have a contact who that lead source from the lead carries over to the contact on conversion. And then that contact is an opportunity contact when you create the opportunity. You add the products, you close the deal. And now all of a sudden you've got a report where you can say, show me total dollar amount of all opportunities where the affiliated contact resource or the contact's lead source equals, this value. It contains LinkedIn, it contains Facebook, it contains YouTube, whatever it is. And now you've got an amazing report that says, and only show me where the close date is last 30 days or whatever. And you've got this amazing report that's just breaking it down for them, and they can adjust a filter to say, show me last 90 days. Cool. Now I've got this data for the last 90 days. Show me year to date. And they can just chop the data and get amazing feedback just like that. And the important thing is we got to get lead sources on 100% of leads. We have to understand our qualification criteria and make sure our reps only convert leads that meet the qualification criteria. And if they need to go around the criteria, we need to talk about adjusting what qualification means and what the criteria is if they don't like the way that it's working right now. And then we need to make sure that they're logging their opportunities in Salesforce. And then that brings in, this is why it's so important that we have our product catalog built out in Salesforce. And the best way we can do that is to have all of your products listed, all of the prices listed, and make sure that our stages on the opportunity meet your sales process, right? So all you're doing is walking them through it. And so the better you can understand their business, at this point, when they've given me sort of these garbage requirements, what I want to know is, don't tell me requirements anymore. Tell me about your business. And what we would do is I would say, hey, could I get a meeting with, if you have somebody who generates leads, who is it that's out there generating your leads? Can I get a 1 hour meeting with them? I just want to hear about a day in the life. What's a day in the life like for this person? Like, are they on LinkedIn literally typing in names and copy pasting that into Salesforce and clicking save? Like, is that what's happening? Are they doing trade shows? Are they doing webinars? Are they doing what are they doing to try to get in front of leads? And I just want to talk to them about how they're entering new leads into the system. And then I'm going to look for opportunities to polish that process. Exactly. How are you generating leads? How are you entering into the system? Where are these leads coming from? The next thing I want to know is, okay, once those leads get into the system, who do they get assigned to? Who's converting them? Who decides when they get converted? And then I want to know how you ensure that your leads are being followed up with appropriately. Like, your leads are where your money's at. If you're just dumping them into Salesforce and you don't do anything with them, okay, like, that's your problem. Like, that's not a lead source issue. That's a you problem, where we need to have a process around how do we make sure these are followed up with. Do we need an escalation to a manager that says, this lead was entered into the system, it landed in a queue, no one took ownership of it for 48 hours. Let's send an email alert to a manager to say, hey, somebody's got to grab these leads. We got old leads sitting in the system that have not been, there's no task logged to them, no activity's been logged. What's going on?
Yeah, these are all things that, or at least, a few of these are things that I've definitely had to do for other companies. So that makes sense.
Oh, I have no doubt you've done all of this stuff. It's just a matter of taking a step back, because you probably had clients who were more informed. You might have had sales engineers who did a lot of the digging for you. And now when you step back into freelancing, you've got to take on every role.
This is definitely very new. I've only dealt with people who would come to me with a list and say, this is exactly, and they even want to tell me how to implement it, you know, and I have to say, no, let me determine that. So this is a whole new world. Taking this objective step back is very new to me.
Cool. Well, that's good. I mean, that gives me insight for what people need making the cutover as well, So basically you're following each step of the process. Like, the beginning of any company's process is, how do I get leads into the system? Okay. Now, how do I get quality leads into the system? All right. How do I qualify those leads? How do I make sure I'm following up with them and giving them the attention they need so that I can qualify them? Okay, cool. I've got them qualified. So we've done all that up to this point. We've got leads into the system. If not, we're going to try to figure out how to get more. That's not your problem. You're the Salesforce expert. Now, you can give advice if you have advice, but really it's up to them to figure out where to find their target audience and get them into the system. That's not really your problem. But your problem is if they enter somebody in, how do we make sure that there's a report to track leads that are falling through the cracks where we're not following up? Can we have a list view for that? Is that on the homepage dashboard? Any kind of alerts going to go out to our people to make sure that these people aren't falling through the cracks? It's all that. You're filling the gaps. They're doing the business side. They're making their business decisions, and you're making sure nothing falls through the cracks, that they're getting what they need. Typically, you can handle it with a report and a list view. They might want an email, but only for really important stuff. Now you've got qualification criteria. We can qualify leads, and now we can see what's happening once they become contacts. Now, once they become contacts, what I want to know is, hey, who is the person today who is figuring out where these people, specific requirements of your client, how do these people fit into the role of their company? So what I want to have is another day in the life meeting. I want to have 30 minutes with whoever sets up these roles and figures out where people sit at their company. I want to talk to them about what they're doing today, how they figured that out. And what you're doing is, while they're telling you this, you're just trying to figure out, is there a way I can automate that? Is there a way I can streamline that process to make it like easier? Or do we really need human intervention to come in and say, you know what, there's no data that's going to tell us where they fit in the role hierarchy? That's really human intervention. I just need to give them a nice way to define what role they're in and where that sits and what's above what. So you're just trying to understand how they work. And by the time you're done with this, you're going to have a full process. Like in your mind, you're going to know what the person does who generates leads, how the person qualifies leads, how they structure the contacts at the company. And then the next situation you want to have is, well, now that you're trying to sell them something, how do you bridge that gap? How do you get in contact with them? Are you supposed to be, do you have a activity cadence, for instance? Are you expecting to call them once per day? Are you expecting to text them once per day? Are you expecting to email them once per day? What is our cadence of activity that we want to do with these people to make sure that we're approaching them the way that we need to be? And that might mean you have another set. So now we had our lead reports that were like 1, 2, 3 on the homepage. Now we might drop down to our contact activity tracking. And that might be step 1. You're expecting to have 5 activities per week per contact. So you might say, show me all contacts who have less than 5 activities last week, that kind of thing. That way you can have a report where the manager can come in and go, man, like rep 1 has 17 contacts who were contacted less than 5 times last week, where rep 2 only has 3. So what is rep 1 doing so wrong that rep 2 is doing so right? And it might mean, I'll let you take a quick note. It could mean a lot of things. It could mean rep 1's not logging their activities, but they're doing great work. Rep 2 is good at logging their activities. Doesn't mean they're good at doing the work. So it's user adoption at that point. So do we have a user adoption issue? Yes. Okay. Let's get them to log their activities. How can we incentivize that? Do we not have a user adoption issue? We have like a person not doing their job issue. And if they're not doing their job, why aren't they doing their job? Is it because rep 2 got 20 leads last week and rep 1 got 400 leads last week? So they just literally didn't have the bandwidth to get it done. So then we can make more informed business decisions again. And that's what we're trying to do, is allow a manager to look at a dashboard and go, okay, I got to call rep 2 and figure out what happened. I got to call rep 1, figure out what happened. Maybe we need to have a quick meeting and we'll use this dashboard as a conversation piece. Maybe you introduce that dashboard to the reps and say, hey, if your name shows up on this list and there's 10 or more in your name, I need you to email me with the reason why there's more than 10 in your name and how you're going to remediate this for next week. Thanks. And that's it. So you can make some of these, you can help guide them into what's logical. And I would just say, my advice would be to put yourself into the shoes of the company. and understand what their needs are as if it were your company. And I remember thinking about this of like when I was growing up, I know it's the most ridiculous example, but I would go to KFC as like a teenager. And I just remember thinking like, sometimes you get like the crappiest service ever. And it's like, man, this is unreal. And I just imagine a world where like the colonel himself is starting like the first Kentucky Fried Chicken, and how amazing the service must have been, and how great the quality must have been, and how much they cared about every single meal that went out to their customers. And then it sort of started getting handed off to all these other people who over years and years and years cared less and less and less, and they were just trying to find a dollar. And that's where you have to make sure that doesn't happen. Like, this company is handing off their process to you and their platform to you, and you need to represent them, the original, person who cares so much about this business and making sure it gets done right, as opposed to just trying to put a line item on the SOW that makes you $1,000. Like, let's focus on doing this correct, because what that's going to do is make this company want to work with you forever. If they see you engaged in the process and caring about the outcome and having real conversations with them, like being able to talk to them and they give you a requirement and you go, yeah, but what I want to know is, how are we going to make sure right? Like, how are we, like, not you or me, but how are we as a team going to make sure that we're tracking the opportunities and that we know where the money's coming from a lead source perspective? When we start talking like that and engaging like that, your clients very quickly are going to go, holy smokes, like we got a teammate. This isn't like this third party guy that's kind of helping out on the side. Like, he's a player on the team and we need to keep him on the team, as long as we can. So that's how you want to sort of think of this. So once you get through the lead process, sort of how do we, typically accounts and contacts are pretty simple. It's just a matter of tracking maybe some activities and maybe some data points. They're pretty simple. The lead has like a process. There's like statuses that the lead moves through.
Right.
Contacts, typically not. Accounts, typically not. But the opportunity, very similar with stages. And you need to make sure that they're doing what they need to do on those opportunities. Same thing, like, are we supposed to be touching these, like logging activities against these X number of times a week? How do we move them through to the next stage? Do we need to set up sales paths? Do we need to actually have like the guided selling where we have the notes in for each stage that tells them where to go and what to do? Because chances are they're not utilizing that stuff today. And that would be huge for them. Just the visual, like people love the shiny new toy, and just that sales path visual where they click on it and the notes drop down below it with the guided selling, and it tells them, hey, you're in this stage of the, opportunity pipeline. And at this point, you should be reaching out to this person with this type of information. Make sure they got the white paper about blah, 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 and why compliance matters, all that kind of stuff. So that way the rep looks at it and they go, oh yeah, I forgot to send that white paper. Let me shoot them an email real quick with that information about guided sell, or that information about marketing compliance, and an example of a company that got sued for $10 million because they didn't follow compliance and it crushed the company, like all that type of information to help influence potential customers to make a decision that if you're selling a good product, you're not tricking them into buying it. You're telling them stories or examples or whatever else to help them understand why this is the best choice for them. And they really need to do this for the future and health of their company. So anytime I'm trying to talk to a client about selling a product, I always assume that their product is amazing and necessary and that their clients need it and it's best for their well-being or whatever it is. Because that helps you get a little bit of that passion behind it to say, like, guys, it is your duty to make sure your customers are aware of how amazing this product is. And if you're not doing that, that's not your customer's fault for not buying. That's your fault for not basically educating them about how necessary this product is. Now, how can we better educate your customers about how necessary this product is? And you want to move that concept forward, because chances are, going back to KFC, the colonel thought this was the best fried chicken on earth and that nobody should be eating anything else except this because it's so good. And chances are, whoever invented or created or founded the company you're working for also thought that about their product. They thought This marketing compliance stuff is so important. Companies are just tarnishing their reputation. They're destroying their deliverability. They can't get done what they need to get done because they don't have a product like the one I'm selling, and they need to buy this. And they feel that way. So you have to help facilitate the process to get them there. Now, I know we talked a lot, but I wanted to put you in like the right headspace for how to.
Yeah, I needed that. Thank you.
Okay. So now going back to your statement of work, we should be able to better fill out initial discovery and design. Totally fine. I think 10 hours is fine. Data analysis, but now when we get into the descriptions of this stuff, like lead object configuration down there, like now we can give them some guidance, right? Like, I know this is what I give. Like, you're like, wait a second, Brad, I like copied and pasted this. Like, but
a lot of it was kept the way it was, and maybe a few things changed. So
Yep. So what I would do is I would have a particular item here for like the system audit. And I would keep it simple because this is up to you. So I would say like 3 to 5 hours for the system audit. Because what happens is when you're doing the system audit, it's very subjective, where you can say, oh, I'm done with it. I did the proper audit. No one's going to check your work. So if you're doing things and you get to 5 hours, then you're done. The system audit is complete. Just make sure you're using your time effectively to knock off the things that you need to do. And then when I get down to lead object, I don't need to do a removal of unneeded fields here. We're going to talk about, because that's done in the system audit. In the lead object, we're going to only do enhancements to improve their process, which is where you're going to talk about, I want that creation of up to 3 validations, 1 automated process. I want all that to sit at the bottom. And for the top section to be basically everything we just talked about. And it'll just be bulleted out. Yeah. So what I would do is I would delete that. Yep. Exactly. That's exactly how I would do it. And I would just say, like, these are the limitations down here. And if you want to walk them through the SOW, you could say, this is how we've given 10 hours to this. And so I have to put some limitations around what it is we can accomplish in a certain amount of time around, these topics. So these are down here just for, if we do all of these things, we have to know that if we want to add more validation rules or more automated processes or more fields or whatever, then we're going to have to talk about additional hours for that or pulling them from somewhere else. But what I think we can accomplish with these 10 hours is you might say includes 2 hours of meetings or with around lead generation and lead qualification criteria. And now you're giving them, like you said, the meat and potatoes. Like, where's the meat and potatoes? We got to give it to them. So we're going to do X number of hours of meeting around lead generation and qualification. Now, scrolling back up, the next thing I would think in my process is, okay, I got the information. Now, how do I document it? So that has to be included up here in line 1. So you can't charge them again for documenting the solutions here, right? That's in the 10 hours up above. So we're going to do X number of hours of getting the information, getting the requirements, understanding it. And then we might do, and then okay, then it's going to take me a couple hours to document that. That goes up in the top up there. Okay. And now coming back to this, now I'm going to build, we probably already have it called out down at the bottom, X number of reports. Let's see.
Actually, I did it as a separate reports and dashboard.
There you go. 10 reports and 2 dashboards. So I would say up in the lead section, we're going to build, and you can decide if you want to break it out as something separate, or you could put right here in the lead section, you could say, we're going to build 3 reports to help facilitate
3 reports.
And I would put it up at the top, even though it seems to read like one of those. I would put it up in the top section right after we put that information about X number of hours for meetings. Yep. Build 3 reports to help facilitate the lead generation and qualification process. recommended reports would be, and then I would put
those three that you
exactly those three reports. And if they don't like it, that's okay. Then we can talk about what you want the three reports to be. And then you might say, it doesn't matter. You don't have to call out that it's going to be on a homepage dashboard or whatever. You can make those choices later. But this is all about what you want to be held accountable for. So you want to be able to come back to this and say, hey, we did spend 2 hours talking about lead generation and qualification. That was those 2 meetings with those 2 groups. We did build 3 reports. They're right here. And I actually added them to a dashboard, which wasn't part of the statement of work, and put them on your homepage for you so that you could make business decisions based on those. So all you're doing is you're creating like a sort of a cover yourself situation here. And so it helps you cover you, and it helps your client get what they paid for. And it helps you explain to them that you delivered what they paid for. So these have to be very logical steps where you can say, look, the 3 reports, they're right here, right here, right here. Here's a link. And here's a link to the statement of work, section lead object configuration, where I said we would do 3 reports, complete. Like, you're never going to have to deal with that. But if you ever do, it's really nice to have the steps in place where you can defend yourself in a situation. Typically, you're not going to have to deal with this at all if you actually come caring about the client and trying to work with them and build something positive. So yeah, from there, it's like you would just go through that process. And this is the kind of language I would use for every step. And it would be lead. And then I would probably combine account and contact into one, because chances are account's not going to have validation rules, probably not going to have an automation around it, probably very few custom fields. The accounts and contacts can kind of be combined for simple implementations. So if I'm in your shoes, I'm like account/contact object configuration, and then deleting one of those sections, because you're going to want to focus in on the lead and opportunity for most of the stuff. Okay. And then so it would be across the account and contact. We'll do up to 3 validations, 1 automated process, 20 custom fields, 3 list views. And then opportunity object, you're going to want to do similar lingo to the lead object at the top. It's got to be, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to streamline your sales process. And then product object configuration, that sounds more like a mild data import probably. They're probably going to put a list of all their products in an Excel file with a price. And really, I mean, when you're adding products to the system, as long as their product tables are simple, it's the name of the product, maybe the product family or category, the product's active, and this is the list price for the product. Insert the product price list, and then you should have what you need from a product perspective to add those to your opportunities. So if they only have like 5 or 10 products, maybe you manually enter it. If they've got like 20 plus, maybe you consider a list view for it, or a list load for it. But that's totally up to you. So I might put something in there like your products are good. I might say, import of up to, 30 products, something like it. You want to put a little limitation around it. And, with, maybe with up to 10 attributes of those products or something like that. What it does is it just limits how many custom fields, how many columns are you potentially going to have to key in or import. So you're going to put that in. So for me, product object configuration, unless you know something I don't know, that's like 2 or 3 hours. Because like they're on the hook. Now, if you need to have a meeting to help them define what their products are, like that's different. But otherwise, they should just be saying, hey, here's a list of products. And can you make sure that these are available to be selected when we're adding products to an opportunity? So that one's easy. Then opportunity products, the line items themselves come naturally, unless they need something specific, like custom formulas or something to calculate different things on the line items. Like I've had companies do like, well, this product is a a monthly subscription. And so it's $10 a month. And so the price is $10, but the term of the opportunity, there's like a custom field on the opportunity term is 3 years. So now I need a formula field on the line item that says price of this line times the term gives you the total price for this line item over the, opportunity total price or whatever. So little stuff like that, but otherwise products should be really simple. Opportunity products should just naturally happen. That's just a matter of adding a product to an opportunity equals line item.
You think 15 hours is overstated for the opportunity? Bring it down to 10?
I would bring it down to 10. I would say whatever you do for the lead is probably what you're going to do for the opportunity. And your wording is going to be very similar. I would say, hey, you might like opportunities interesting because you might do more reports for it. Like you might go like 6 reports on the opportunity because opportunity is a little different. You probably want like a pipeline, like a stage pipeline report. You probably want like a number of open opportunities per rep report, number of closed opportunities this week, number of lost opportunities this week. Like there's a few more things people care about when they start looking at money, where they're like, I want to see like more detail than just the pipeline. I want to see like, where did we lose money? Like who lost all the deals? Like how long are they sitting in specific stages? Like I want to see the duration of these opportunities, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And what I would do is if you're looking for report ideas, check out like there are some App Exchange like installs you can do where it's a free App Exchange like report kit. And it'll come with like standard reports and dashboards for like a lot of this key stuff. And all you have to do is go through the ones that were installed and just say like, ooh, yeah, that's a good one. Save that into my sales reports folder or whatever. So really you installed an app, and then by the time you get done with it, you can be like, hey guys, I know we said 3 reports on the lead. I actually built 10, but I only put 3 on the homepage dashboard. And really you installed a package. But the important thing is, as a consultant, you added 10 reports worth of value because you knew about the App Exchange package. And the same goes for opportunities. Hey guys, I said 5 reports. But what I did is I went ahead and created 15 commonly used opportunity reports for you. These are the 3 I think you should focus on, or the 5 I think you should focus on. But if you want to check out some of these other ones, I got 10 more over here you can check out that I built just because I felt like those could be meaningful to you if you're interested in them, kind of thing. And it just makes you look like a superhero every step of the way. So yeah, check out those. Trying to think what else. So what else do we have? I would combine account and contact. You can do that whenever.
I wanted to ask you these where I kind of dive into looking at the user security review, data security review. Should these things all be part of the system audit, or should it be separate? Because what I'm getting at is basically they only have like under 10 users in the system, but they're talking about having more. They don't have any they haven't customized the system one bit.
Okay.
But so should I have this step?
Hold on 1 second. I'm losing your audio. Let me see if it's definitely the internet bandwidth. Let's see.
Yeah, you just
let me video.
Hey, Brad.
All right, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, I'm one of the difficulties is out here in Metro Atlanta, we don't have cable internet, and I'm having it installed. Actually, I'm having Comcast build the infrastructure, which is costing me a ton of money.
Right.
I'm working off a mobile hotspot.
Cool. Well, it's working pretty well. Yeah, maybe
right now?
yeah, maybe don't share your camera, and that'll help pull the band. I'll turn mine off too, and maybe that'll help with the bandwidth a little bit. Yeah, I can see your screen. So
I was asking.
Yeah, can you? What I would do is I would keep user security is definitely its own bucket. User interface and navigation could definitely be considered part of the system audit. 20 hours is definitely overkill on this particular side. If you told me they had 10 different lightning layouts on every object, I could go for this. But if they only have one lightning layout and maybe like 1 or 2 page layouts per object,
Hey, Brad.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I just reset the mobile hotspot. That should help.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. So if you can hear me okay, yeah, I think I know what you're asking here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you were saying 20 hours is a bit overstated.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would take your user security needs to be its own setup. Let me see. So this has got your profiles, permission sets, sharing rules, roles. Now we're getting into, I would probably bunch these two together and just well, it's tough. On one side, I want to keep it simple for the client. On the other side, I want to make sure that they see the value. And sometimes people need to see like multiple line items to feel like they're getting a lot of things. So maybe keep it broken out. But for this like user interface and navigation configuration, maybe keep it broken out for the sake of what I just mentioned, like looking like a lot of items on the cart kind of thing. And I would bring this down to if we're confining ourselves to lead, account, contact, opportunity, maybe the product layout, we're really looking at, grabbing a lightning layout. What I always do is I always do my layouts the same way for every single lightning layout. That way, with people who are new to the system, they can easily navigate no matter which object they're looking at. It all looks the same. So what I always do is like hover over related list at the top, highlights panel, then on the left, record detail, and then on the right, all the related list. And that's it. And I do that for every single page layout, or I should say lightning layout for everyone. And if they want it changed, I can do that, but I keep it really simple. So that's all I would do is jog through those 5, update those lightning layouts. And yeah, I think you can knock that out in 5 hours fairly handily. And we definitely want to build in a little bit of buffer for some of this, but what I like to do is take it down to what I think I can do it in, and then come back and work out the buffer after the fact. Let's see. So yeah, I think system audit, 5 hours is fine. Data analysis. This is part of the system audit, really. But
data analysis.
Yeah, but it's I would consider it part of it, but let's keep it separate. I like it. I think 5 hours is fair. That'll allow you to do a really good job of like running reports on different objects and just seeing which fields are populated and not. I would advise you to look at a App Exchange tool for that as well. There's a couple that do a really good job of like exporting the data. And it might cost you a couple hours of research to get App Exchange tool set up that does a little analysis, but you can use that for every client going forward. So I wouldn't necessarily charge them for the research into which tool to use. I think the one I use is called like Metazoa or something crazy like that. I can send you a link. But really all you do is select an object name and click. Yeah, that's about right. OA. And all you do is click an object name, say output the report, and it'll tell you like, here's every single field. Here's this object has 1,000 records. This field is populated 5% of the time. You might want to consider removing it. Like that's all it does, is puts it out for you like that. And then you can put these nice little reports together on each object and say, hey, I would advise us removing these 10 fields on these 5 objects because here's the report I put together for you. And again, it just makes you look like a superstar every single time you sort of show them something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Be able to kind of show them what I propose to do before I do it. You know,
Yep.
make them feel like they're in the driver's seat, but
That's
yet,
right.
you know, steering the car.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. And you're just providing them really amazing consulting level information to help them make choices. And they might come back to you and say, hey, that field is used 5% of the time. That sounds about right. Like that's a field we don't populate too often, but that's part of our process. So let's keep it. And that's it. User security. Now, I like to keep these really simple. Like my rule of thumb is let's not assume there are going to be problems, and let's not solve for problems that aren't here yet. Like we can come up with 1,000 scenarios of potential situations where security is a problem, but let's not solve for things that aren't even reality, or we don't even have a good reason why we think they might become a reality, you know? So like when I set up a system, it's like system admin profile, system admin role. But the thing is, half the time, the sharing settings are public read write on every object because they don't have any.
Yeah.
And it's like the roles don't even matter anyway, unless you're just trying to, you know, share a report to a specific group of roles or, you know, something like that. But otherwise, the roles are highly unnecessary. If you have if all of your objects are set to public sharing, then the roles have no control over visibility at that point. So what I do is I usually, just for the sake of not getting questions, because I had the question too many times, is I create the profiles based on what they think their company is like, and I create the roles based on what they think their company is like. And this keeps you from getting questions. It's like, hey, wait a second, I'm the director of IT, and I'm listed here as, you know, whatever, the highest level on the profile, but so is Tommy from the sales team. And it's like, yeah, man, because you guys don't have any strict security. Like it's cool. But they want to know that they're different from Tommy on the sales team kind of thing. So what I typically do is I just have like system admin. They can do anything, obviously. Then I might have like sales management, sales reps, support management, support reps, like that kind of thing. And it just makes people feel like they're like, hey, I'm a manager, I'm a director, like I should be in a management thing, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, sure, if that's what you want. And what it does is it may not do anything on day one, but when you get to day, 90, they might really have some differences for the sales managers versus the sales reps or the, whatever else, where it's nice to already have the profile in place to be able to go modify it. So all of that to say,
about roles in this case, like sales manager, sales rep, or are you talking about profiles?
Both. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I just make them match each other on some of these simple implementations. Because what it does is it just sets like a predefined structure in place. And if you're going to have like restricted sharing on records, then roles are going to be very important. But if you don't, if it really is just public read write on leads, public read write on accounts and contacts and opportunities, then who cares? And then I would just have my sales manager profile, and everybody with a sales manager profile gets a sales manager role because it literally doesn't matter. So I'm just creating more of a what a typical end user is expecting to see when they look at the system. And it does create a nice structure for if they change in the future and they want to restrict things, you've already got your structure in place for, how those kind of things are going to look.
Okay.
So all of that to say is, if you think they're going to be in a very like public, wide open sharing settings, then you know that you have no time there. That's going to be like 30 minutes to go check the sharing settings and make sure that it's all set to public. And then if you go into profiles, all you've got to do is like clone a couple of profiles, adjust the naming, make sure they have what they need, assign it to the right people. You probably won't need any permission sets right out of the gates, maybe one or two. You won't need any sharing rules if everything's public read write. Your roles will just match your profiles, assign it to the right people. Like if you think it's going to be that simple, then I would probably knock this down to something like, maybe like, this is where you can give yourself buffer. I think it'll probably take you like 3 to 5 hours. You could give yourself 8 hours for this to be like a buffer point, because people respect security.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to kind of advise them to do is to not be so public, right? Because that's what they're doing. Everything is public, and for them to say, listen, your company is going to grow. It's better that you start thinking of these things now, like who should have what data. And I mean, this is what the company I work for right now does, right? Is make sure that HR only has access to HR, finance to finance, and so on and so forth, and give them some of that experience and say, you may not feel the need for it now because you have a small group of users, but if you start thinking in these terms and we start setting up these objects, but I guess there's also the risk of getting too restrictive with a small group of people. So what do you think about kind of
what happens is that they're gonna so here's what I always do, and this is a little bit selfish from the consulting side, is I always advise with small companies especially sort of a public sharing setup. And the reason for that is that you're never going to get an email from a client at 11 p.m. at night that says,
I can't see this.
Exactly. I can't see it. Can you help us? We don't have the right access. Something got deleted. Like, oh man, come on. It's not a fire, guys. It's because it's not owned by the right person or whatever,
Right.
And so it just keeps you from having to deal with that. And we had a rogue salesperson who couldn't see our account for this, and this. So he created new ones, and now we have all these duplicates. And, it's like, oh my God, no. So it just helps when you're looking at a new implementation. I always use what I call a crawl, walk, run methodology. We're just crawling right now. We're getting things off the ground, getting everybody comfy. And then if we think, hey, we need some more restrictive security, you've got me. I'm here to help you. Let's talk about doing that as a next step,
Okay.
Data security. And I would also advise, think about your projects in that way always. Biggest mistake most consultants make, this is big firms to freelancers, they try to get all the hours in the first project. And it's a huge mistake. You need to get your hours in the first project, but you need to be keeping it biteable for the client, making it feel like a good value, and then pitching them on managed services long term. Like, hey, we did this and this. I think this is awesome. You guys are going to have a lot of stuff going forward. We did a lot of cool stuff for a really reasonable price. Hey, if you want to keep me on at even something simple like 10 hours a month, $1,000 a month, I'm right here for you guys on retainer. Let's get a managed services agreement in place. And now you're covered from a Salesforce perspective for what, 12 grand a year? That's awesome. So let's do this thing. And then once they've seen that amazing value, it's like the same thing with anything. It's a marketing tactic, and it's, let me give you something. Let me over deliver. The first time we work together, let me under promise and over deliver big time. And now you're going to want to work with me forever. So let's just do it that way. And, for a lot of smaller companies, it's like, hey, I'll do 10 hours free. And then they end up doing like 30 hours free, and they pretend it was just 10 hours. And they're like, oh my goodness, like, look at all the stuff we got done for 10 free hours. Let's sign this guy up for, X number of hours a month or whatever, and maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, 30 free hours, but But it's a tactic. Like, here, take a little bit for free. If you love me, let's get a contract in place.
Yeah. That's
so
gotta play chess, not checkers.
Right. Let's play the long game. Let's get set up for, an actual business with like clients that are repeatedly paying you every single month. And we don't need one to pay all the bills. We can have 4 or 5 pay all the bills. But let's get the first one in place and then worry about the second one. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like even now, had you presented a price to them at all?
No.
Okay. So when I do smaller, I know I think I messaged you on this, like my smaller, like stand-up price is usually like $2,500, $3,500. It just makes it so easy for people to bite it off. But then because you're telling them the number of hours on everything, they know like, if we go over, it might be, a couple hundred extra bucks, maybe 500 extra bucks. But if you come in on point on this, man, they're going to want to work with you forever, especially when they see other consulting companies. Like they might say, Conrad was all right, but let's try to go get a quote from somebody else. And then it's going to be like $30,000. And they're going to be like, wait, what? Holy smokes. Like, and Conrad, had all this stuff listed out and all these things we get. And this other consulting firm came in with like this insane quote compared to what Conrad was going to do,
Yeah.
All right. So going down the list, like I think you're in pretty good shape for most of this stuff now. Data security review. Yeah.
I combine these 2 lines together, or at least maybe chop the hours down.
Yeah, I would say maybe 5 on the second one. I would say both of those, you could probably run a 5 to 8 number. So when you're coming back and kind of reviewing this later, just think like security is something they don't want to question it too much. So just consider if you're looking to buffer some hours, which I do advise doing, nothing crazy. It just makes you not look like an amateur when you go over. You've already built in the overage a little bit. Because the last thing you want to do is be coming back and, if you want to come back for more hours once, okay, you start coming back for more hours twice, you start affecting your relationship with the client. So you want to protect yourself up front.
Makes sense.
So let's go down a little bit. Let's see what else we have down in the line items.
Combine these. You had said.
Yeah, we'll combine those. So 20 stands out to me. This because we don't know what we're going to do here, right? Like research and development provide solution. Like, and the reason you're saying 20 is you're trying to protect yourself. But it's like, I think this is like, I would almost feel more comfortable saying TBD. Let's do 3 hours of discussion and further understanding of the needs of this particular topic before I even try to.
That's something I would say here in this thing. I'd say
yes. What I would say is let's do develop custom sales org chart solution. I would like to do 3 additional hours of discovery and meetings to make sure I understand the needs of this requirement.
Just move this, the rest of this.
Yep. And I would say let's schedule, we will need to schedule time with the SME, the subject matter expert. On this topic to further define requirements. Yeah. And then I would just put 3 hours over at TBD. And what this is, like that is like, don't screw yourself over on stuff like that.
Should 3 hours instead of the TBD, or like?
Yeah, I would say 3 hours right now, and then you might do. I would say like maybe instead of develop on this line item in the first column, say define. And then I would add a new row below this. There you go. And then I'd add a new row below it, or above that one, however you want to do it. And I would say design custom sales org chart solution. And then I would say TBD. And then maybe in the content over there, like the description, say, design will be based on line item above or something like that. Yeah. And that just helps. Like 20 hours, probably enough. But man, when you don't know the requirements on something, that is like ripe for costing you months of trying to wiggle around and figure out what to do, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's why I do what I did.
Yeah.
It was like I overcompensate, and when I got down to the bottom and I saw that I had stacked these guys up with 200 hours and $20,000, I said, I'm probably doing something wrong here.
Yeah. No, that's all right. I mean, that's all part of working through this. I think this is definitely a meaningful session we're having here. Are you comfortable with HubSpot? I know it's just integration review, so that's kind of nice. But are you comfortable with that conversation? Do you have experience with HubSpot and what they kind of want to do there?
So they just mentioned HubSpot. They mentioned that they use it. And my experience with it has really been from an administrator level. I work with someone that does the integration side, and if I needed them, they would jump in on it. So
Perfect.
What I was hoping to do is to kind of sell them on it and say, listen, this is going to be part of that lead generation type conversation where we're understanding how leads are getting to the system, garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
You probably want me to go in and look at things. And if you do want me to actually change things, that can be a different discussion.
Okay.
So that's why I put just a review, but they haven't explicitly asked me to do this.
Okay, perfect. So that's what I would do. I would leave it the way you have it then. And then just be prepared to discuss this with them.
2 hours instead of 5, you think?
Yeah, I might. Here's what I would do. Let's go down to the bottom of this, like where we get to the end of the deliverables. And then where's your total price for the project? All right.
It's not calculating based on.
Yeah. So what I would do is create like additional, like these would be my primaries up above. And then I might create another table that's like additional items to be considered.
Okay.
And then so they get a nice, pretty blue line right here with like solid good hours. And then I would actually probably go below the signature and add a table, like add the same table from up above and just say additional items to be considered, something like that. That way they can sign off on everything above without signing off on what's below. And you can pick things from below and cut and paste them up into above if they want that.
Yeah, like for example, some of the things that they did not ask for explicitly that I don't think that they necessarily need right now would actually be the user security, the data security, and the HubSpot. I mean, what you said to me a few minutes ago about people not arguing with security makes me want to keep it in this.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
This agreed upon thing. So the only thing that I would really put in the additional is to say HubSpot integration review and HubSpot integration, reconfiguration.
Yep.
Or optimization.
Yep.
Just those two things. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep. I think that sounds very reasonable.
Okay. So I'll do that. They don't have any sandbox. The guy won't even create a new user for me to get into their system. He's like having me log in with his user.
Okay.
Can two people log in with the same account at the same time?
They can. Yeah. Okay. It's not all that restricted from Salesforce, but yeah, you don't want to play with it. But yeah,
I'm gonna ask him to. You know what it is they don't have additional licenses.
Okay.
He's like, I don't want to have to pay for another license. It's
well,
like,
you could.
Should I push him to do that?
No, I wouldn't. I never do for my clients. Like that's pretty common. What they're doing is pretty common. What I might do is create the partial copy sandbox and then maybe switch his user over to like your information or deactivate him and add yourself in the sandbox and then just do most of your work from the partial copy sandbox kind of thing. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I wouldn't overthink it. But just, so I certainly wouldn't push for it. It's one of those things where while the licensing agreements say that you can't do that, it's also very typical practice, especially for small companies, not to give you a license.
Okay.
Let's see. Consultant will complete internal testing of all features. That seems a little heavy to me.
Yeah.
I definitely want to do quality assurance, but what I would like if I were a client, I would expect this to be like, wait a second, like you're going to build all this stuff up above, and then it's just going to be total garbage to the point where you have to spend 20 hours testing it. Like, why don't you just build it right the first time? Like, I understand you're going to have to test and remediate a little bit, but seriously, you got to spend like 30% of the project cleaning up your poor workmanship.
So we bring this either remove this or we'll bring it down to like a 3 or 5.
I would call it a 5 and call out what it is. This is once we have a sort of a holistic product, project completed. This is assurance testing in the sandbox. What I might do is put and it's just testing that all changes agree with each other, or not, like all enhancements, work together for a streamlined result or something like that. So I think that's all fine. What I might do is say,
I'll make that sound better later.
Yeah. And what I would do is I would put, after that, I would say this includes the creation of a partial copy sandbox.
Okay. Not have a separate line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that the official term, partial copy?
Yeah, it is. Yep. And I might update that to 7 and then 7 hours and then remove the line above.
Got it. Yeah, the other thing I didn't want to do too is bombard them with 2 pages, 3 pages of line items, and I'm already doing that. So.
Yep, and then client testing. So let's see, consultant will complete testing of the application. We will then provide a UAT test script for the clients to help guide testing to ensure end-to-end solution adheres to requirements. So I've seen this a few times. This is actually one of the biggest considerations for clients not understanding the expectations of a project. Just as an FYI, what they do is they underestimate the amount of user acceptance testing they need to be prepared to do.
I have a lot of experience with that.
Okay. So, just be wary of that. Make sure you're setting expectations up front that like, hey, I'm going to build this stuff out, but you are the subject matter experts. You understand exactly how you expect this to work. So I need to make sure that you've got people ready to test and spend some time testing, and I'm going to provide you a user acceptance test script. And then I would put in the description, this includes up to 2 iterations of issue, basically issue reporting and fixes, if that makes sense. You can word that.
Yeah, I think that's what you had some language in here before. This was probably what you were saying here, right? Includes updates as necessary for any issues discovered.
Right, and you're just boxing yourself in. Like, send me a list of the issues and I'll fix them. And then I'll even let you go back into the system and retest and send me a list of issues and I'll fix them. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and let you retest and fix and retest and fix for eternity. Like, we gotta lay this out. So that includes that. So 2 iterations of fixes. So basically you've included support in that, like ongoing support of the product. So I would say, that's probably a solid 5 hours of just support. Now putting the user acceptance test scripts together for everything that you've done above, that's probably, 5 hours and just conversation and stuff like that. So I might knock this down to maybe 10 or 12, something like that. And see how that feels. Yeah, I think that's fair. And if they call you out on that, that's an easy one. It's like, a product is not really a product if it hasn't been tested properly. The last thing you want to do is for us to build things out and then you guys not test it thoroughly. And then you end up, with a solution that, whatever, you can talk the talk on that one. And you can sort of make them understand the value of the hours. So virtual training, 2 hours of admin, 2 hours of end user. Are you going to build
I guess
decks?
I might put in the additional.
Both of these. There you go. All right. So I was wondering, like, where's the training documentation? Because that eats people sometimes. They're like, oh, 2 hours of admin training. And then it's like, oh, I got to build a deck. Like, oh my God, that takes hours. All right. Leave behind documentation, PowerPoint decks, screenshots, step-by-step walkthroughs for any new features. Cool. I might knock that bottom one down to something like 10 hours. It's just anytime I'm looking at something that says like 7, 3, 5, and then it's like 20. I'm like, whoa, what happened on this last one here? And I think that's fair. So now we should have something much more manageable for the client. And this is common practice. Like you'll get more comfortable doing what we just did. But what you'll want to do is come back through. You're going to look at the hours. You're going to be able to tell yourself, do you feel comfortable with what you just put into this and how many dollars are associated with this? And if it makes you uncomfortable, it's going to make the client uncomfortable. So you have to figure out how to make this feel comfortable to you. But anyway, yeah, I think it looks really solid now. And if you can finish that practice where you were taking notes on that other slide, and you can sort of finish that practice of stepping through their processes, then you're going to be in much better position for those conversations where you're like, hey, you know what? I've been asking you for requirements. It's not what I need to do. I want to hear what you do today and how you work, and then let me provide to you what those requirements are. But I think this is ready for, to send over as like a draft to a client, just about maybe get HubSpot down and like some, what you're doing is you're creating a way to prioritize for them and saying like, hey, I heard some things that you need. I would definitely prioritize these items up here. You might want to consider, if you have additional budget, adding in HubSpot. And if you want to do that, I'll toss it up above and we can add that into this project. If not, let's hold that for a secondary and let's knock these things out above. Make sure you feel comfortable with the initial Salesforce setup. Then we'll layer in HubSpot on top.
Yeah, you were saying earlier too about like usually small business initial projects. You try to keep between what you said 2,500 and 5,000. Was that it?
Yeah, small, like 25 to 35 really is what I'm shooting for. Now you're doing quite a bit here, more than I would do. Like, I probably wouldn't have a system. Like you could easily.
That's where I'm a little concerned.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. That's where I'm a little concerned, is because again, they haven't given me a lot of requirements. So I'm coming in here and I feel like I might be taking it a little bit further than taking it much further than they're expecting. I know I should take it a little bit further, right? Because they may not, it's one of those situations like you were saying, like that, they don't know what they need. So let me tell you what you need. But if I take it too far, they're going to say, oh, this guy's just trying to grab money.
Yep. So what I would do is I would say, I would call this if you're concerned about that, I would call this your, I don't know that, like, this is going to be your, like your standard setup, like your, I'm not sure what to call it. It's going to be like your professional package, like your professional Salesforce implementation package. And it includes all this. And then what you could do is basically just save as this document as your quick, I forget, we used to have like these packages at the consulting firms. It was like your quick setup or your kickstart, your kickstart implementation or something like that. And we would knock off, and what we would do is we'd come through and we'd knock off, like, we're going to do no data analysis. We're going to do no system audit. We're going to simplify like the lead object stuff. Let's bring that down to 5 hours, super simple. All we're doing is getting this thing off the ground for you. You know what I mean? Like streamline it, get it off the ground, push it out the door. Not going to have a whole lot of meetings. We're going to have like a kickoff meeting. We're going to have a check-in meeting, and then we're going to have a training meeting, and that's all you're going to get. And we might do that for 20 hours, 30 hours, something like that. So that's the way you get these down, is like, is to just pull the hours down dramatically, is to say like, I'm going to do the design for you. So I'm going to pull this initial design and discovery down to like maybe like 7-8 hours. We're not going to do any data analysis, no system audit. That got us rid of, 12 hours right away. User security review and setup. I'm making an assumption that you're going to be public read write. We're going to have 3 profiles and 3 roles. It's just going to be system admin, a standard user, and a read only. Now we got that down to 2 hours. Data and security, I'm going to assume no security issues here. We're going to get that down to 2 hours. And all you're doing is taking everything and turning it into like this super simplified version and call it like your Kickstart implementation or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be wise for me to do here because, again, I'm afraid if I go too far ahead of what they're expecting, they'll just be like, nah, this is... And I mean, this is someone that I know, so I know he'll be willing to negotiate with me, and that's why I tried to itemize it as much as I did to say, hey, we don't need this, but we'll take these other 5 items. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think...
Yeah, I would just... people like options, and what I would do is supply them with this one, like your standard professional implementation, and say, hey, I understand if this like isn't in budget or you're not sure you want to lean into Salesforce quite this hard at this time. Here's the Kickstart guide if you'd rather go in this direction, and this is why it's a little different. And you're just setting expectations up front to say it's a little different. This is what you're going to get. This is what you should expect. The professional is more like, I'm on your team. We're working together. We're going to build a solution that's right for your company. The Kickstart guide is more of a, let's get Salesforce off the ground. Let's do some basic setup. I'm really just supplying a service to you. We're going to have a couple of stand-up calls, whatever. And then I'll do a training session and you'll be off and running. Let me know if you need anything else.
So make basically prepare 2 versions. And if they don't like the first version, hit them with the second.
And you might just supply both. You might just say, hey, like, here's what I recommend. And that's this one, the full one. Like, this is what I recommend as a experienced consultant for your company. This is what I recommend to you. If you would prefer something smaller where we can just test drive a setup and you feel more comfortable doing something smaller right now, it's not necessarily what I would recommend, but it will get, you everything you need and it'll get you off the ground, then let's go this direction. And that should get you where you need to be, at a very basic level.
Okay. And in that quick start, like you were saying, cut out things like data analysis, system audit. You do a lot of assumptions with the security. You cut down that discovery and design to minimal, and basically there's no real training involved. It's just configure your objects, no bells and whistles.
Yeah, it is just it's the base model. That's all you're doing, taking it down to the base model. Yep.
I like that idea. Yeah, I like that because then it'll really show them that I understand the the structure of how things work with, the client consultant relationship, Mm-hmm. So I'm like, hey, you can get me in this capacity, but you can also get me in that capacity.
Right.
I'm willing to do either for whatever you want to do.
Yep.
It's all about you guys.
Yep, that's right. We're just feeding you. We're giving you the options you need that fit you. We're flexible.